Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Griffin Dunne is on the pod today. And if you don't recognize that name, that's almost intentional on his part. See, he was on track to be a big deal Hollywood actor. He co-starred in the 1981 movie An American Werewolf in London. He starred in the Martin Scorsese movie After Hours, and his dad was a Hollywood producer in addition to being a well-known writer. Except Griffin Dunne saw what fame did to the people around him, and he decided to shy away from the spotlight. He's got a new memoir out about his life titled The Friday Afternoon Club, and he talked to Here Now's Emiko Tamagawa in front of a live audience about what it took to step away. That's ahead.
For a while now, you've probably been hearing about book bans, how they're gaining momentum everywhere in Texas, in Missouri, Florida, and Pennsylvania.
On the Code Switch podcast, we're taking a look at why. Why are so many books suddenly considered so dangerous to kids?
Listen to our new series on the Code Switch podcast from NPR.
This message comes from the Kresge Foundation. Established 100 years ago, the Kresge Foundation works to expand equity and opportunity in cities across America. A century of impact, a future of opportunity. More at kresge.org.
All right, before we get to Emiko and Griffin talking, there's another aspect to the story you should know. In 1982, Griffin's sister, Dominique Dunne, was killed by her ex-boyfriend when she was 22. And for this book, Griffin went back and relived some of those memories, not just of the killing and the trial that followed, but some of the more joyful memories of Dominique's life too. Here's Emiko.
Just start with the obvious. Why a memoir now?
I think my brother and I are the only surviving members of the immediate family. I'm from a long line of storytellers, and as time went by, and, I lost my mother, and then my father passed, and John and Joan, my aunt and uncle, I got more sort of perspective on their lives and my own, and how I fit into the family, and I thought, I'm the only one who could tell this, and it's kind of amazing. I mean, when I was writing it, I can't believe this happened.
Did it feel normal to you growing up? Your parents had these parties, your aunt and uncle had these parties, that you were surrounded by people that appear on screens.
Yeah, my perspective would change on it. My parents, when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, gave these elaborate big parties and people in black ties, which sounds terribly glamorous. But when you're a little kid and you have a father who makes you come down to say goodnight to the guests, and we're in matching bathrobes, and my sister's dressed like a Victorian Dickens character, and we had to bow. We were like, this isn't fun. But, I became a filmmaker later on, and I'd look at these scrapbooks of the most incredible filmmakers of George Stevens and John Huston and Billy Wilder, and I wish I was old enough to talk to them about, Some Like It Hot, but I wasn't. I was a kid who just bowed to them. But these scrapbooks are documents of Hollywood at a very particular time.
One of your big breaks was An American Werewolf in London. You play one of two young men who go hiking on the moors and then get attacked. One of them ends up in the hospital, and then you, in your character, visit him, but unfortunately, things have happened to you. So,
Not a good look.
I think we have that scene.
We were attacked by a lycanthrope, a werewolf. I was murdered, an unnatural death. And now I walk the earth in limbo until the werewolf's curse is lifted.
I have trauma just remembering that makeup being put on.
Well, that's the thing, because you actually have a really interesting take on this in the book. What it was like to actually see yourself like that, because it's pretty good makeup.
It was so real. And when I looked at myself, I went, this is exactly what I would look like if I was torn apart. And it got me very depressed and also very worried about my mother seeing this. She's going to see her son be murdered. Anyway, it was all fine. I don't even know if she did see it, but that was my reaction.
A lot of actors go into producing later in their careers after they've made several large movies, and then they want to have production credit. You did it really early.
My break before Werewolf was I produced a movie based on a book called Chilly Scenes of Winter by Ann Beattie. My producing partners and I, we're all in our 20s, and we talked to Ann to give us the rights. None of us had ever produced a movie before, and I gave myself a small part in the movie. And it was from that, actually, that things started to take off, because there was a small part, but it got a big laugh. So I did have a reverse thing. I had to make a movie in order to get a job.
But then when offers came in, often you were producing instead. Do you sort of regret being more of a producer than an actor? Or?
I would have moments in the moment of recognizing, wow, I just made this after-hours movie and I should be running headlong into fame. And I would retreat and then go behind the camera and produce a movie that Sidney Lumet was going to make, or Lasse Hallström, depending on different things. And while writing the book, I kind of dove into those years of very odd choices and kind of assessing my relationship to fame and growing up, seeing what that business did to my father or what he did to himself. You know, I saw what terrible backlash that can happen. And so I just knew something about me wasn't formed enough to sort of handle that much attention.
We do have to talk about Dominique because she's just so much the book. You start when police detectives come to tell your mother, and you get told, and you give us that scene right at the beginning, so we know what's coming. But then we sort of go back to your growing up, and all these lovely moments of Dominique, like rescuing animals, like bringing home all these animals with like one leg missing, and her strength of will and her desire to be an actor. And what was it like to sort of go back into that period of time?
Well, you know, as you said, all those things that you described, it was a delight to, and I literally start from the day she's brought home from the hospital. And, you know, my mother, she had 2 girls die, one at birth and the other very late in termination. So when Dominique was born, and she said, I finally got a little girl, you know. And so I'm going all the way through that. And, you know, when I get to that part, I hadn't opened the book at all like that. But I realized that that was the moment that changed all of our lives when she was murdered. My father found his voice that he searched so hard for as a writer, you know, at great cost. There was a trial that went disastrously wrong. They didn't even call it murder. When the sentence was passed, it was called manslaughter. He strangled her. It took 6 minutes.
Yes.
But they said it was, you know, like an impulsive act or something. So he served 3.5 years. You know, my mother was in a wheelchair, and we'd wheel every day to court. You'd think that would have made her worse. She became an activist. She became a victim's right advocate.
The trial really was a travesty. There was like all this evidence that was not allowed. And
well, that was
your family was there and had to sit through that.
I mean, what made it a travesty of justice was that this guy had a history of violence against women and put a previous girlfriend, broken her eye socket and her jaw, put her in the hospital twice. And her name is Lillian Pierce. They finally get her to testify. She's terrified. And she comes in, the judge does not allow the jury to see this, says it's prejudicial. So they're out of the room, and Lillian is describing this horror show, and the killer's name is Sweeney, starts to, as if he's going to go to her. We don't know if he's going to go to her or just storm out. But he's wrestled to the ground by the bailiffs. He struggles and struggles and starts yelling. And you see what Dominique saw. You see that. We'd never seen it. Now everyone sees it, except the jury. And they get him, put him in his chair, and the judge says, I know what an ordeal this is for you, Mr. Sweeney. So they didn't see that, you know. It would have changed everything. So when the verdict came down, we were absolutely shocked. And the judge says to the jury, on behalf of the state of California and the Dunne family, we would like to thank you for your service. And my father stood up in that courtroom and he yelled at that judge. He said, do not thank them on behalf of the Dunne family. We do not thank you. You have kept important information from this jury. And he goes, you're going to be ejected, Mr. Dunne. It's too late. Eject me. I don't give a I'm out of here. And that's what changed everything. His outburst became like, what? And then the jury found out, and then the papers found out, and it ruined his career. And then Dad made sure of it when he wrote about it for Vanity Fair, about what we went through in that trial in an article called Justice. And it was the very first piece he ever had published.
And your father became this amazing crime writer, and your mother became an amazing victims advocate. I mean, there are things that came out of there.
Yeah. I think that's what propelled me to write the book. I mean, I realized my purpose. You asked me, why now? As I was in it, I realized I know I'm writing it. And just to let people know about my family, like how they became.
It is called The Friday Afternoon Club, a family memoir. Griffin Dunne, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Want to maximize your summer without stretching your budget? Life Kit's got you covered with guides on exploring your neighborhood for cheap.
Don't let money or time be the thing that decides whether or not you will have fun. You can have fun almost in spite of those things.
Make the most of every day this summer, whether you're jet setting or staying close to home. Listen to the Life Kit podcast from NPR.
From Cowboy Carter to Old Town Road to Yellowstone, the symbol of the cowboy has been riding high for a few years now. But my big question is, why are we turning to the cowboy? What's actually holding the reins on America's imagination? And what does it reflect about our psyche? Listen to It's Been a Minute from NPR.